is the cross-section of the average human food hole, complete with lips, a tongue and some teeth. A consonant is a speech sound produced when the airflow through the food hole, or vocal tract if you will, is to some degree obstructed. There are three elements to any consonant: place of articulation, manner of articulation and voicing. In this video, let's look at place of articulation. Place of articulation or point of articulation indicates where in the mouth the obstruction is occurring when a consonant is formed. Now, to create the obstruction, two bits of your mouth need to be brought together, the articulators. One articulator will move, the active articulator, and one will remain stationary, the passive articulator. Take the F sound in fish, for example. Here the lower lip is the active articulator and the upper teeth are the passive articulators. The lower lip moves to the upper teeth and obstruction is created, air is blown through, and boom, you get a sound. There's about 12-ish places in the mouth where the articulators can be brought together to form an obstruction. They are bilabial, labiodental, dental, alveolar, postalveolar, retroflex, palatal, velar, uvular, pharyngeal, epiglottal, and glottal. Let's break it down. Number 1, bilabial. Here the obstruction is created using both the upper and lower lips. In English we have 4-ish bilabial consonants. Ma as in man, pa as in pan, ba as in ban, and wa as in water. 2. Labiodental. Here the lower lip contacts the upper teeth to form sounds like fa as in fish and va as in van. 3. Dental. Here the tip of the tongue touches the upper teeth. We have two sounds here in English, tha as in thin and tha as in this. Number 4. Alveolar. Here the obstruction occurs at the alveolar ridge, that bony ridge just behind the upper teeth. We have a truckload of sounds here in English, namely na, ta, da, sa, za, ra, and la, as in nail, town, dog, sun, zoo, run, and laugh. Oh, and there's also the roll door, which I cannot do. Luckily, this guy can.
Ra, ra.
5. Post or palatoalveolar. So this is almost the same as alveolar, except the tongue moves back about a centimeter in the mouth. In English we have two sounds here, sha as in shine and ja as in vision. 6. Retroflex. We have no retroflex consonants in English. They are formed by curling the tongue back in the mouth and touching the roof of the mouth in the general post-alveolar area. They sound a little like this, da, 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 as in the Hindi word for island, dapu, and the Swedish word for north, nord. Apologies, speakers of Hindi and Swedish, I did my best. Moving on. Number 7, palatal. Palatal consonants are where the body of the tongue is raised to the hard palate. In English we find only one sound here, ya, as in yes. 8. Velar. Here the obstruction occurs when the back of the tongue touches the soft palate at the back of the mouth. Again, in English we have two sounds here, ka as in king and ga as in garden. Number 9, uvular. Here the back of the tongue touches the uvula, that dangly bit at the back of your mouth. English does not have any uvular consonants, but they are widespread throughout African, Middle Eastern and Native American languages, amongst others. Closer to home, French features a uvular trill, ra, as in rendezvous. 10. Pharyngeal. So here's where things start to get a bit weird. Pharyngeal consonants are articulated with the root of the tongue against the pharynx. Don't ask. Pharyngeals are found primarily in 3 areas of the world: North Africa and the Middle East, in the Caucasus, and in British Columbia. Again, I can't produce these sounds, but luckily my linguistically inclined stick-figure friend is here to help. Number 11, epiglottal. As hard as pharyngeals are to pronounce, epiglottals are much worse. Epiglottal consonants are articulated using the araepiglottic folds against the epiglottis. If that's too much to wrap your head around, think of making a vocal growl type sound a la Louis Armstrong and you're kinda on the right track. Epiglottals don't feature all that often in human language, but they are primarily known from the Semitic languages of the Middle East. Again, I hand you over to my stick figure friend. And finally, place of articulation number 12, glottal. These are articulated using the glottis. Thankfully, my stick figure friend won't be required here, as English has 2 glottal sounds, pa as in home, and the glottal stop, as in the little catch of air in the throat between and o in uh-oh. Now, this is the main consonant chart in the International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA for short. For now, all we need to know is that the consonants are organized by place of articulation. back of the tongue and glottis. And below are the 12-ish places of articulation. In the last video, we looked at the first element that goes into forming consonants, place of articulation. In this video, let's look at manner of articulation. Place of articulation tells us where in the mouth the obstruction to the airflow is occurring. Manner of articulation, listed on the side here, will tell us how much of the airflow is being obstructed. It's a roughly top-down kind of thing here, with total obstruction near the top and minimal obstruction near the bottom. In order, we have 1. Nasal stops. Instead of simply stopping the airflow, we can reroute it through the nasal cavity. This produces sounds like ma as in mouth and na as in nose. It's worth noting that nasal consonants are nearly universal in human language. Only languages around Puget Sound, Quileute, Kwalsukid and Makah truly lack nasal consonants. Number 2. Plosives. Plosives, also known as stops, stop the airflow entirely. The pressure is built up behind the articulators and eventually released in a small explosion of air. English has 6 plosive consonants: ba, pa, ta, da, ka, and ga, as in pan, ban, town, dog, king, and garden. Number 3. Fricative. There are a lot of fricatives. Here the airflow is obstructed almost entirely, producing a turbulent hissing sound. In English, we have no less than 10 fricative sounds: fa, va, tha, tha, sa, za, sha, ja, ha, and ha. As in fish, van, thought, this, so, zoo, shine, vision, loch, and home. Number 4. Approximate. Here the airflow is impeded only slightly. The hissing sound, indicative of fricatives, is no longer present here, but the sound is altered to a degree. In English, we have 3 approximates: ra as in run, ya as in yes, and wa as in water. Interestingly, the English W sound does not appear in this section of the IPA. Why? Because it's co-articulated. So it belongs in this section, which we'll discuss in the near future. The TLDR here is that the English W sound occurs in 2 places at once. It's a velar approximant, but at the same time it's also labialized, hence co-articulated. Further interesting side note is that theoretically we can labialize any sound with a superscript W after the relevant IPA symbol. So pa, ba, ta, and da, for example, would become twa, bwa, twa, and twa. Number 5. Tap or flap. There are only 3 taps or flaps in the IPA, none of which occur in standard English. The most familiar example of a tap or flap would be the North American realization of the word latter, letter. Here the T sound is replaced by an alveolar flap. What's happening here is that one articulator is thrown against another in a single gesture, hence tap or flap. Number 6. Trill. Here an articulator is held in place, and the air blown through the vocal tract causes it to vibrate back and forth. The IPA has 3 contrastive trills: ra as in the French rendezvous, bra à bras as in the Nias word for lower jaw, and of course the roll 4, which my stick figure friend will again demonstrate.
Ra, ra.
And finally, number 7, laterals. So laterals are liquidy L-type sounds, produced when the tongue creates an obstruction in the middle of the mouth and reroutes the air out the sides of the mouth. Notice laterals come in 3 forms: lateral fricatives, lateral approximants, and lateral flaps. We have only 1 lateral sound in English, la, as in laugh. That said, we can't talk about the laterals without mentioning the voiceless lateral fricatives found in Icelandic, Welsh and Navajo, amongst others. Shla, ashla, as in the Welsh pronoun shlash, which is just the coolest sounding word. Anyways, to summarise, here is the IPA consonant chart. The columns represent place of articulation, where the obstruction is occurring, and the rows represent manner of articulation, how much of the airflow is being obstructed. Next up, voicing. In previous videos, we've looked at place of articulation and manner of articulation. Now, let's look at the third and final consonant feature, voicing. To explain, hold your throat and say fan, except hold the F sound, fan. Hopefully you shouldn't feel what's going on in your throat. Fan. Repeat this process, except this time say the word van. Again, hold the V sound, van. Feel that? You should feel buzzing or vibration in your throat. See, F and V V are a pair of consonants that are identical except for the buzzing that goes with V. We say that F is unvoiced or voiceless, and V is voiced. Unvoiced meaning the vocal cords are inactive during sound production, and voiced meaning the vocal cords are active, hence the buzzing. In a lot of languages, English included, consonants tend to show up in voiced and unvoiced pairs, like pa and ba, ta and da, sa and za, and so on. Notice the IPA chart has cells, and many of these cells are occupied by two symbols. These are the voiced and unvoiced pairings, like for example, fa and va from earlier. Any symbol on the left will be voiceless, and those on the right are voiced. This left-right convention holds even if there is only one symbol in a cell, like in the nasals for example. As an aside, nasals are interesting. Notice that not only are they unpaired, they are all voiced as well. Within reason, we can unvoice any sound in the IPA by adding this diacritic mark. Icelandic features unvoiced nasal stops, as in hnífur, the Icelandic word for knife. Yai, spoken by about 5,000 speakers on Uvea Island, New Caledonia, features no less than 6 voiceless nasal stops. Here they are, but I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce them. Anyways, all things considered, we should now be able to read IPA, at least when it comes to consonants. So let's take this symbol. It's on the right, so it's voiced. Its place of articulation is alveolar, and its manner of articulation is lateral-fricative. So this sound's technical name is a voiced alveolar lateral fricative. FYI, the naming convention is always voicing, followed by place of articulation, then manner of articulation. Now granted, this is some seriously cumbersome language right here, but it does give us all the info we need to produce the sound. Let's logic it out. Voiced means that during sound production the vocal cords are engaged. Alveolar means that the blade of the tongue needs to obstruct the airflow at the alveolar ridge, that bony ridge just behind the upper teeth. Lateral means it's an L-type sound, and fricative means that the airflow should be turbulent, producing a distinctive hissing sound. Mix up all the ingredients and it'll sound something like this. La, or la. Got it? Cool. Now, as much as possible, the IPA tries to harmonise with the Latin alphabet. So, for the most part, if you see a symbol that looks like an L, it'll be a sort of L-type sound. Just as a symbol that looks like an N, say, will be some sort of modification on your standard English N sound. In any case, voicing, although a very simple concept to grasp, extends way beyond the simple voice-to-voiceless duality. In addition to the standard method of voicing, we can execute sounds with a breathy voice, or with a creaky voice, you know, that Californian vocal fry type sound. Added to all this, there's a thing called voice onset time. This is defined as the length of time that passes between the release of a stopped consonant and the onset of voicing. There are 3 distinctions here. 1. Negative voice onset time, where the vocal cord vibration happens before the plosive release. 2. Zero voice onset time, where the vocal cord vibration occurs with the plosive release. And 3. Positive voice onset time, where the vocal cord vibration begins after the plosive release. Examples would be ka, ha, and ha. This is important, especially when you consider aspiration, aka positive voice onset time. Noted with that little superscript H there. Take the English words spot and pop. We think of the 2 P sounds as being the same, but they aren't. This P sound is aspirated, pa, i.e. is accompanied by a puff of air, and this one isn't, pa. English makes no distinction here, but many languages like Hindi, for example, do indeed distinguish between voiceless, voiced, and aspirated consonants.